Welcome back to Sprague Homestead on another Mailbag Monday. So if this sounds a little echoey, I apologize. I'm actually out in our sunroom. It's a little windy outside and didn't really think I could muffle the wind down a little bit. I also look a little sunburnt because we've been out in the sun today working on our new storage building, which I'm sure Kanan will cover in a video coming up soon. But between I think our high today was 42 degrees, but our winds were around 10. So I'm sporting a little bit of windburn and sunburn at the same time, which is good times for us in October. So the first question we had this week was, what is the best kind of heat lamp to use if you're brooding chicks, particularly off-grid? Most people kind of know that the traditional heat lamps that you get for chicks, like the red or the bigger ones, are really kind of high wattage and not the best to use off-grid because power is such a big deal. And we hatch a lot of chicks. So I get this question quite often where people are asking, well, what do you use since you live off-grid and power is such a big deal? We don't use a heat lamp at all. I actually stopped using heat lamps a number of years ago. And we now use the bigger radiant heat pads. The ones we have are from Brincy or Brincio. I'm never sure how you're supposed to say that. Premier One has some. I was thinking there's another brand out now that have them. We have the Eco Glow. We have I think it's a 20 and a 50. We actually have two of the big 50s and one of the itty bitty little small ones. They don't draw a whole lot of power. What we've noticed is there's no picking. They seem to feather out faster than they did with the lights, and they seem to adapt more readily. Like they come off a heat a whole lot faster. They don't like to spend a lot of time up underneath the pads, so they kind of get more heat tolerance or cool temperature tolerance faster and can be moved outside much faster with the radiant pads than they can with the lights. So that's what we use. Okay, so going to rabbits, because there's always rabbit questions. Somebody asked, how do I know how much feed I should be feeding to my rabbits? That they said they were using a commercial feed. Okay, so commercial feed varies wildly by the concentration. So you need to check your feed tags. They oftentimes will say something like 1 ounce per pound of rabbit, or it'll say something like, half a, I think usually they say something like 8 ounces to a 10-pound rabbit or whatever. The big thing is, remember that they are talking about weight, not volume. So even though a cup is 8 ounces, it doesn't weigh necessarily 8 ounces. In some cases, like I think when we were feeding Neutrino, we found that by volume and by weight, it was pretty much the same thing. But you need to actually weigh your feed and find out if there is a recommendation like that. You need to figure out exactly what your feed weighs before you figure out what you're going to use. So the rule of thumb, if it says 1 ounce per pound, if they are still growing, like say they're 6-month-old and they're New Zealand, so they're not going to finish until 9 or 10 months or 8 or 9 months, you feed whatever their weight is now. So if you've got a 5-pound rabbit or a 6-pound rabbit, feed 6 ounces plus an extra 1 or 2 ounce per day, and kind of see what the rabbit tells you. If they're looking a little thin, bump up the feed a little bit more. If you've watched the other feed videos, I'm not a big fan of free feeding at all. So you do need to monitor the rabbit's weight. Now, sometimes it'll tell you that 1 ounce per pound and it's not enough. Like people, metabolism differs by breed and by sex and by age and by activity level. Some of your bucks that are really high strung, you may have to almost double feed to keep weight on them. But what we do is we feed at a certain level for a week or two and then make adjustments. You don't want to make rapid changes. So if you decide that they're not getting enough, you don't up their feed by a whole extra half. So you don't go from 8 ounces to 12 ounces because it overwhelms the system. And you don't really have a good idea at that point of what they need. So if they're at 8 ounces today, and say they're losing weight, go up 2 ounces for 2 weeks. You're going to add 2 ounces every single day until you can kind of get them to flatten out or even gain to where you want. So Check your feed tags is the big thing. That's how you know your starting point. And if it doesn't have anything, I know some feeds just say free feed. If it doesn't say anything, a good rule of thumb is to start with 1 ounce per pound and adjust from there. Okay, so another rabbit question was, at what point do you call it quits and go ahead and take your nesting box out? The answer is almost always 40 days. So what's normal, most does will go 31, 32, somewhere in there. Some of your breeds will even go 30 days as far as your nesting box is concerned. I've had them go 34 and 35, so it's not out of the realm of possibility. I have heard as much as 40. I've never, ever heard of anybody going past 40 days. So usually what we do is we leave a box in. If I saw good fall-offs, because I'm not good at palpating, if I had seen good fall-offs and I was fairly confident, especially if they show nesting behavior, we leave the nest in until 40 days. At 40 days, I'm usually assuming it's either false pregnancy or, she urinated and I didn't see it, or whatever it is. And then I will pull the box, and on day 41, I'm rebreeding. All right, so the other rabbit question was, how hard is it to find buyers if you decide to become a rabbit breeder? It's going to depend. I say this a lot, but it really is dependent on where you are, first of all. It depends on what breed you're choosing and what you're marketing them for. Things like New Zealand's are typically fairly easy to sell because everybody knows them as meat rabbits. Even though I don't like them, most people, that's what they know, what they go to. Right now in the United States, it seems like rare breeds are doing pretty well, particularly meat-sized rare breeds. So your Americans, your American chins, your silver fox, your Beverin, your Palominos, American sables if you can find them, a lot of that kind of stuff. If you show your rabbits, and I know not everybody wants to do that, but if you show your rabbits, you have a much bigger pool of people you can sell to. Because what usually will happen is most people have a centralized breed, but people will be at a show that say New Zealand, and they'll see a rare breed and they'll be like, hey, I'm going to give that a try. A lot of people will pick up a rare breed as a side project, maybe not their main breed. So showing is a good way. If you have a fairly active 4-H group in your area, that's usually a good way. I like to either try and do an essay contest to give kids a set of rabbits. Unfortunately, what often happens is they get the rabbits, they sell them, and then they turn them into something like Holland Lops, which kind of sucks. But it is a good way to try and get them in the hands of kids. Some of your bigger heritage breeds, especially like your Silver Fox and your Americans and your American Chins, are really super sweet rabbits. So if you can get them in the hands of some of the older 4-H kids, sometimes you've got a better chance at getting them going. But that's kind of the big thing. I mean, websites and advertising and all that kind of help. But if you're really going to try and, sell and make some kind of money off of rabbits, it's not happened to me yet. But if you think you're going to make some money off of them, it helps a lot to be either in something really niche-y that people are looking for, or, in an area that, people are real big on trying to do for yourself. So you can try and market meat breeder kind of stuff. All right, so the last question for today is, how low of a temperature can your dome greenhouses go and still keep things alive? I don't know. To be honest, I don't know. We don't usually fall garden because I find it really frustrating to have everything alive and get a cold spell and everything die. So I don't usually bother. Generally, this time of year I'm showing rabbits anyway, so I don't take the time for a fall garden. This year, because I'm home and because of the state of the madness of the world, we are doing a fall garden. So what I have growing in the dome right now is beets, turnips, spinach, some cabbages, lettuces, collard greens, kale. All the radishes are pretty much done. I'm sure I'm missing some stuff. But anyway, basically greens and some root crops. I didn't bother with carrots. But so that's what's in there right now. We have been down to 13 degrees now. And they're still going fine. I didn't really even have any frost damage. The only thing I lost was some basil plants that were in there that I totally spaced getting out. But that said, not only are they closed, we have 3 barrels in there, 3 water barrels in there right now for heat sinks. And we have been tripling up the row covers. In fact, on the lettuce, I have them 4 deep to try and keep everything warm. Tonight, we are forecasted for 13, so what that means for us is probably 5, 6, 7 degrees, somewhere in there, because we're usually quite a bit colder than forecast. So, I don't know. I might have a better answer for this the next week. But as of right now, the lowest we have gotten is 13, and everything is still doing just fine. So keep your fingers crossed for me and say a little prayer that everything keeps going. I've got absolutely some gorgeous greens out there. I'd be really sad if they croaked, but at some point this winter, I'm not going to be able to keep them warm enough, I think. It looks like it's going to be pretty cold. Okay, well, that is it. That's the 5 questions that I had this week for our Mailbag Monday. Boy, you can tell it's been a long day. I am going to go get started on some chores and then maybe take a nice hot shower. So that is what's in my future. But if you have questions, would like to ask a question for the next Mailbag Monday, or if you just need to get in touch with me for something, you can leave the comments down below. You can send me an email at srhomestead@yahoo.com. Hit us up on Instagram, Facebook. We get lots of messages through there. And we will do our best to answer you and get back to you. So that is it for today. Sun's going down. See you next time.